welcome you back to Night Talk. We welcome Paul Hobbs to the program. He is the man behind the prestigious Paul Hobbs Winery, the owner and the winemaker. In fact, he's been named the most important winemaker in California. A couple of times, the Wine Personality of the Year. Mr. Parker gave you that honor a couple of times. And also, Robert Parker actually gave you, on one occasion at least that I'm aware of, a 100 in terms of rating one of your wines, which is almost unbelievable when it comes to Mr. Parker. Welcome to the program, first of all.
Thank you very much.
And tell me what it's like to operate at this level of respect for what it is you're doing. It must be very rewarding.
It's tremendously rewarding. I'm enjoying my work. And, of course, the accolades, when they come in like that, make it even more enjoyable. So it's terrific. How
does one start on the road to becoming a winemaker? This wasn't something at 12 years old, or was it something at 12 years old you said, this is what I want to do with my life?
Well, in my case, it was sort of like I fell into a few serendipitous situations occurred. The most important, I grew up in a large farm family. I'm one of 11 children, the second oldest. My family, teetotalers. And so, but my father decided that one evening he wanted to get some wine on the family table. And to do that, he consulted with a buyer in Buffalo,
New York. Okay.
Buffalo, New York. Mm-hmm. And so this expert helped my father select a bottle of wine that my mother would not recognize as wine. It turned out to be a bottle of 1962 Chateau Yquem, the first wine we ever enjoyed at the table.
Mom was supposed to think it was grape juice, or what?
And she did. It worked like a charm. So my father at that point made the mistake, of course, of then showing the bottle. Mm-hmm. I grew up on a farm, and on the farm we had mostly orchards, apples and so on. But after that wine that evening, my dad and I discussed putting in vineyards. So we began the next spring planting 20 acres of grapes for the Taylor Wine Company in mid-state New York.
Mm-hmm. And Taylor's a name that's been around for a long time. And mid-state New York has now come to be wine
very
country.
Important, yeah.
Absolutely.
In the Finger Lakes area.
Yeah. So take me to that stage where you've just, I mean, was this something that was supposed to be a hobby? Did you think it was going to be a cash crop? Did you want to be winemakers? Did you want to sell the grapes to others who were making wine, Taylor or beyond Taylor?
Well, my father really wanted to make wine. And I went on to the University of Notre Dame and studied pre-medicine there. It was only while I was there that I began to love wine, because even after that first bottle of wine, that first taste, and I had tasted wine a couple of times as an altar boy, and I kind of understood my mother's suggestion not to drink wine because it was quite horrible. It
doesn't appeal to children at the first taste, apparently. But what intrigued you beyond that? You're doing pre-med at Notre Dame, and what?
And then I met my botany professor. My final year had been a winemaker for the Christian Brothers in the novitiate in the Napa Valley. And when he learned that I was interested in vines and so on, and we had some vineyards in New York, he suggested I join his wine appreciation class. And that, he was the impetus that got me to take the next step, which was, rather than go on to med school, sort of turned me around and suggested I go on to UC Davis and study enology, the science of wine. So that's really what, I mean, that was a real challenge and a big shift.
What kind of curriculum is that like? What do you study? I mean, do you study different types of grapes? Do you study the actual process of what is it exactly?
Well, part of it, and the part that it was most intimidating, is that you have to have a good palate. And so part of it is training your palate and learning about wines in that sense. The other side of the curriculum is very highly scientific. So we were taking heavy organic chemistry courses and so on.
A lot of the stuff you would have taken in med school, or you probably took in pre-med as well.
I'd already taken some, but there were even higher level courses that they wanted me to take. But a fair amount of it, about half of the curriculum, had to do with research, and I did my research on the oak aging of wines. And that, in fact, is how I landed a job at Robert Mondavi Winery, and then Opus One began.
The idea, though, that the palate has to be refined, there must have been an exam, which I assume must have involved some tastings. which, to my way of thinking, probably would be the best kind of exam anybody in college could be required to take. Instead of the frat party, you're actually sitting there sipping what it is that you wanted to do. So you finish school, and you end up at Mondavi?
Correct.
91, right?
Well, the year I started at Mondavi was 1977, 78. And Mondavi started their joint venture with Mouton Rothschild in 79. So I happened to enter at a very good time, and because of the research...
And with some very, very big and well-known names, too.
Yes.
What did they have you doing at first?
Well, at first I started working in research, and I was and also in the cellar, pulling hoses and making wine with my hands. And then later I got promoted to be an enologist and work with Tim Mondavi and the team. And then with Lucien Ciano, the winemaker representing Mouton Rothschild. And that was a breakthrough for me.
Oh, yeah, that's a legendary name there. Yeah, absolutely. What is it that they spotted in you, or what is it that you demonstrated to them that made you rise so quickly and obviously, have superstar potential in this field?
Well, I think that the most important aspect was that I had a sort of a penchant for the science of winemaking, and I think the Mondavis felt that was going to be useful with the French coming, but the French, being more artistic-oriented, really didn't see that as a value. But I knew the chemistry of wine, what you would extract from grapes, for example, from the skins or from the seeds or from the oak, and how those work together from a chemical point of view. But I was still very young in my career. I hadn't developed any skills as a winemaker by that point in time. But I think that was the main reason.
As you progressed through that, when did you know that you were going to go out on your own? Because 91 was the year that you went out on your own.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
When did you know?
Well, something happened prior to 1991. I then went on to Simi Winery, and I was winemaker for 5 or 6 years with Simi Winery in Healdsburg. I got at some moment an urge to go to South America, and it was around 1988 that I did that, and I met Nicolas Catena in Mendoza, Argentina, and he wanted me to help him as a consultant.
And he is, for the benefit of the audience?
He is today the preeminent winemaker and has an extraordinary family business in Argentina.
I want to stop it right there. We have to take a break, come back, talk about that, talk about how suddenly the Argentina wines made a name for you as well in this country and around the world. Paul Hobbs is our guest. Back with more in just a moment. Don't go away.